Yeah.
Tim, are you here?
It snowed.
Yes. But wait.
I couldn't get here. The snow was so bad. I couldn't get anywhere for an entire.
That was Tuesday, buddy. We're here on Sunday.
We can't say
Tim, it's you though. You're here and live in the studio.
There was snow.
That was Tuesday, buddy. Again, we do the show on Sunday.
But there was lots of snow.
Again on
the schools are still closed.
On
the schools are still closed, so I couldn't go anywhere.
Again on Tuesday, I've seen you once in the last 5 weeks.
It's been more than that.
It has not. Christmas, the mental health show, we were together.
No, we were here. Well, we're only 2 weeks. We weren't here.
Right, but
that's not 5 weeks.
You were off for 2 weeks.
I wasn't off. Well, yeah, those weeks I was off. The last 2 I was sick.
Right. We did a show together. Then you were sick. So I've seen you once in 5 weeks. It's great.
Once in 5 weeks.
It's great to see you, buddy. Hey, everybody, how you doing? Welcome to Picking Up the Habit. My name is Frady, and this is Brother Tim. He is live in the studio. Say hello, Tim.
Hi, everybody.
Go ahead, Tim. Do what you do.
We're having a good time here, folks. You're listening, Picking Up the Habit. We're here every Wednesday.
Sunday. Oh. See, you're off for 5 weeks. You messed up again.
I did.
We are here every Sunday from 3 to 4 p.m.
Whether we're here or not, we're still on the air.
At least I am.
Yeah. But that's us.
I got you. It is us. We are a team. We are a team.
3 to 4 Sundays. And we're here to talk about those things you want to talk about. Although, folks, I got to be real honest. You've been disappointing a little bit lately, but I'll take the blame. It's hard to call in when you don't know if we're doing a live show.
It's how is it?
So I will take the blame on that.
But see, here's the thing though. When they do know we're calling, and you can follow us on Facebook, Picking Up the Habit. If you follow us on Facebook at Picking Up the Habit, we will tell you if we're doing a live show or we're doing a repeat. So yeah, go on Facebook, just look up Picking Up the Habit and follow us, and that'll tell you. And you can watch us live there once we hit 100 people. We're only like 30 away. Even I know they're listening because they tell us.
Well, and I do too.
They call.
I'm just saying the calling doesn't always happen. And we know, folks, there are a large number of you that listen, but don't always listen live.
That's true. You can watch, and that's one beautiful of Facebook and YouTube. Picking Up the Habit. You can watch us at the shows afterwards. If you cannot catch us live, we hope, or if you want to repeat, watch it. But even when we are live, like when we did the mental health show a couple of weeks ago, I know they are listening because people told us how great me and Kelly did afterwards. I'm like, well, why didn't you call during? I don't want to call. Don't be scared to call us. Don't be scared. Because look, I'm a teddy bear. You don't even have to tell me it's you. Like if your name's Cody and you want to tell me your name's Anita, okay, hey.
Well, let's not carry it too far. But yeah, you do not have to give us any of your identifying information. In fact, to be real honest, we don't want you to. That's part of the beauty of Picking Up the Habit is the anonymity, so that people can call and ask questions that they're afraid to ask, or maybe afraid is too strong a word. They don't feel comfortable asking their pastor or their friends. That adage of I'm asking for a friend, and then your pastor's like, yeah, right.
Or the questions about your pastor, like, why do you make so much money? What do you do for that money? Like,
you're just leading into that one.
I'll just say, like, if that's a question, if you want to call us, say, I think my pastor makes too much money, and you can't ask your pastor that. Call.
Do you even know what your pastor's making?
Do you know what your church is doing with the money? That's the big one. We had that one church story for a while where.
Well, there's a number of people out there. I mean, folks, if you don't know where this program came from, it was Joe Daniel and I.
I know, I was there.
We were at a concert for
it was a Christian concert at a local church, right?
And WWIP was part of the sponsoring for the concert.
Sister station.
While we were sitting there, in between while they're performing, we're outside, with all of our magnets and cups and all that stuff. Joe Daniel got up and was walking around, and he came back with the proposed budget for the church. And I was like, what do you have? He's like, I think it's their entire year's budget. And I was like, what are you doing with that? Well, they left it out. So he's reading it. He's like, no way. I said, what? He says, they pay an organist $75,000 a year.
Just want to point out that's more than I make working 3 jobs and owning a business.
And I was like, really? And he says, yeah. And I've been here. She doesn't play but funerals. I said, well, maybe she's a concert organist. And he's reading through this and he's talking about they've got ministers being paid hundreds of thousands and all this. And at this point, Joe Daniel was a relatively new Christian. I mean, really new in the church. And he was flabbergasted. And so he and I started having these conversations at the station. And he and I would get in these big debates. And the station owner came out one day and he says to the station manager, he says, now that is a show. And so that's how we got started.
Picking up the habit, here you are, 10, 12, 11 years later, something
like that. The key thing is, folks, is that we have been asked to become syndicated. And we always say no for one reason.
You say no.
We are a live caller-driven show. It is not meant to be a recorded show. It's not meant to be played elsewhere. Now, lately, I've been rethinking, but the key thing is we want to be available to you, the listeners, at 757-488-5299, 757-488-5299. We want to be here for you to be able to ask your questions. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you, I don't have all the answers, but we have enough listeners that can help you with your answers. And I can tell you, we've had all of the great shows that we've done is started with a listener calling in and asking a question.
That's true story.
Whether it's been something like, hey, my girlfriend and I are due to get married in 4 months, but her lease is up this month. And so she's going to move in with me, 2 separate bathrooms, 2 separate bedrooms. But our pastor said if we do that, he won't marry us. That was
I have to sign
true situation.
I've signed the same thing. I can't live with a female of the opposite sex.
As opposed to a female with the same
sex. You know what I mean? Like I can't. I have signed the same thing with my current church. I can't because of what
you can't have a roommate that's of the opposite gender.
Which is, I married my last roommate.
Yeah, but I mean,
we're since divorced, of course. Everyone knows that. But I married my last. Yeah, like we can. That's a whole. I know we're going to be off topic, but I get why a church would say that because of what it looks like. You're automatically going to assume.
It's not a matter of so much as what it looks like. It's a matter of the temptation.
I get it. But I can also say when me and my ex-wife were living together as roommates, and you know this because you knew us beforehand, we were strictly platonic as just roommates and friends until we decided to become a couple. And then we got married right away.
But see, the key thing is here, that statement, you signing a statement that you won't, is the same reason why my offices have windows.
True story.
I do not meet nowadays. 12 years ago, well, I've been a monk now, 2009, so 15 years.
15 years, yeah.
When I was the director of the campus, I didn't meet anybody. We had windows everywhere.
Where it should be.
Nowadays, back then, you didn't meet with a woman without a woman in the lobby.
You should still not meet with a woman alone.
Nowadays, I don't meet with anyone.
True.
Unless there is a witness out in the lobby. Now, they can't hear what I'm saying. They can't see the other person, but they would definitely be able to see if something hanky is going on because the way my desk is set up, I'm sitting at the head of a T. My chairs for guests are on the right or left with a table down the middle. And in order for me to be able to touch the guests in front of me, I got to stand up and walk around where everybody in the other rooms could see me. And the people in the chairs, you can't see them when they're sitting, but you do know you see the back of their head. And we do that plain and simply because these days you have to. It's safety. You can't get insurance unless you do something like that these days. So if you've got questions, and I got to tell you, folks, I've been getting a lot of people asking me about budgets because the annual meetings are happening, have happened, and they're talking about money. And in my experience, there is only one topic that creates more angst than money.
You know how I feel about it.
It's music.
Okay, that's not where I thought you were going, but
no,
okay.
But music creates more arguments in a church than second is money. It nowadays it
True
just
story.
is.
True story.
So with the money, people are looking at. I keep hearing, I got to give my tithe. I got to give my tithe. But what's the church doing with it?
We just played that episode from earlier in December last week, where it's I feel a lot of church, and I know we per the recording, because I remember the episode when we recorded live, and we played it. Yeah, it's that time of year where they're asking for the end of year budget, new budgets, want to make sure they're up to speed.
Your commitment for the new year.
Yeah, but
how much are you going to commit so that we can properly plan what we're going to do?
And we went on that show that we played last week about tithing because of a friend who went to 2 different churches, checking on the churches, and both churches were basically like, you need to tithe, 10%, 10%, no questions asked. If you're not tithing 10%, you're going to hell. And that's basically what both these sermons were about. That my friend, and it turned them back off to go back to church. They haven't been back since, unfortunately, to try find a new church, which is sad. But yeah, no, it's money's a big thing. It's
757-488-5299. 757-488-5299. I don't, you know how I feel. Tithing is a biblical treatment.
10% is biblical.
But what the church does with the tithe really, really depends upon the church. I know that in the Anglican faith group that I'm in, we have a 10-10-10 model. I'm not thrilled with it. I'd like to see it modified a little bit, but 10% of what the church gives goes to the bishop, who's the senior administrator and leader of a regional group of churches. He gets that 10%, and then 10% of what he gets from all the churches gets fed back into his diocese, his region, to build and plant new churches.
I'm going to ask this question. I apologize. Sure. And this is not a sarcastic ask. This is not a rude ask. Any of that. So the bishop of your diocese gets 10% from every church in the diocese.
Correct.
No matter how many churches you have, no matter how much the money is, no matter, just 10%, he gets that just to himself.
Correct. No, not for his own pocket.
Okay.
He's like the rector of a church.
Right. I get that. But his office.
So his office for his secretary, all of the assistants, the guy who does the church planning, oversees all the churches, and then a lot of the new churches that are starting, we have what's called like a 3-year model. Gotcha. So if Frady, when you graduate, you apply to become ordained, and the reason is for what city? I know you're in Chesapeake.
Chesapeake, yeah.
What suburb?
Oh, where I live in the South Norfolk area.
Okay, so you feel led to start a church in South Norfolk, and you've got a couple of people who are also interested. The diocese will pay you 75% of your salary for 1 year.
Okay, I feel better.
So you need to get the people
to come within a year
that are planting with you to make up the other 25%. At the end of a year, the diocese drops their amount down to 50, because you should have raised the amount that the church is making in that year.
Gotcha.
And then after the third year, you drop down to 25% from the diocese. You should be, so by year 4,
you're fully funded.
You're fully
self-funded.
Yeah, the church is fully funded to do all the work it needs to do. So they don't expect you still do tithe to the bishop, but they don't expect like a full tithe that the church.
Right, I got you. I feel better about the 10%.
And so that's how we do it. Now, I don't know that all the non-denominationals, they don't have a bishop to be able to tithe 10% to.
I can tell you that there's no bishop, but I can tell you based off my connection with non-denominationals, they do give 10% to the organization that for the same reason.
But see, that always makes me laugh. If you're a non-denominational, then who is the organization that you're all giving to other than a denomination?
Let me strap in, folks, because here we go. Here we go. We've had that fight a lot. Or I wouldn't say fight, but argument lots of times. Here we go.
Syntax thing, folks. Your number 757-488-5299. 757-488-5299.
But yeah, we give 10% to that organization. At least from my understanding, similar. I know we give 10% off like we do at 2 missions and at least 10%.
Well, but see, that's a different 10%. Right.
But I do know we give a percentage back to the organization. And it's very similar to like the 75, 50, 25 from my understanding. I will just say I'm just based off what I've heard.
Your church is donating money to an office
just based on what
to new
people have told me, things I've read. I'm not part of my leadership team, so I'm not talking like I'm in the know.
That's the question that I'm being asked.
Oh,
should all the members know?
Yes.
Are they entitled? You don't know because you don't choose to pursue it.
Correct. The less I need to know in my life, the better.
But if you needed to know, if you wanted to know, could you?
Yes. If I asked those questions, would there be transparent on what one, because we're required to as a 501 or 503, whatever the nonprofit is.
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
If you're a legalized nonprofit,
you'd be surprised how many. I mean, all churches are, but you know what they do. I mean, look at what happened this past week with the Episcopal bishop woman up in the pulpit who preached against Trump. That is against
the rules,
the laws.
At least in Virginia.
No, for the IRS.
Oh, is that federal?
Yeah, you cannot. And this is the thing that gets me. You cannot preach in favor of or against any individual, politically speaking.
Correct. You got the topics. I know we had that show.
That's correct. But so there she is breaking the law in front of the very person who's responsible for enforcing the law.
They're not going to do nothing.
No, they're not. But it leads to the topic that I asked you about earlier. And that is, okay, I'm not going to say whether I'm for or against our president. He is our president. I can't change that.
Biblically, we are to be for him because he is our current president.
And we should be praying for him, no matter what.
No matter what.
The issue is, we have started, meaning the United States, have started to gather up the illegal immigrants that are in our country. Now, a number of years ago, before COVID, we were faced with this discussion as a pantry. Because people were coming to receive food because of COVID. The shutdown, grocery stores not being open, people not getting paid. Up until then, we may have seen people that were illegal, but we didn't see many. We did see some migrant farmers during the season, but again, not many. And we were starting our database. Had been involved for maybe 3 or 4 years. And Feeding America and one of their food banks created another database. And we were supposed to join it. And my board refused. Absolutely, positively refused. Because we actually read all the bull hockey that you got to sign to agree to, when you use the software, we're going to this, that, and the other, we're going to this, that, and the other. And in there, it told us that the data that we entered, and they wanted last four of social, birth dates, names, addresses for everyone in the house. And they said we didn't own that data, but it was owned by the people who designed the database. And one, if they decided to sell the database, the information went as well. And how they used the information was up to their information policies. And now this one said, how we will use the information is defined in our information policies. Well, there were none. I emailed, I don't know how many weeks in a row, asking for a copy of these policies, and I was completely ignored. And as I read further in this policy, they told us that the information, keep in mind again, the name, full name, legal name of everyone in the building, their house, birth dates, last four of the socials, and the addresses. And they stated they would share the information with federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies when asked. We said no. We're not doing that. It was a big argument. Well, Brother Tim, what about render unto God that which is God and render unto Caesar's that which is Caesar's? Their socials are Caesar's numbers.
They don't have socials. They're not Caesar's.
The socials, but that's the point. If they don't have socials, then shouldn't Caesar be the one to be told?
Right, but it's not. I'm going to answer, and I want to hear your, before I give my answer, I want you to give us a call, 757-488-5299, 757-488-5299. Should organizations give up this information? Here's my answer. Yes and no, depending on the organization.
What does it depend upon?
Five Loaves should not get that information.
Why?
Because God sends those folks to you.
God sends them to any pantry.
Right, but well,
are we not receiving federal funding through the USDA program?
But if they don't want to give those, that's different. If they don't want to, then you would just say if you don't want to give your information, you don't get the federal funding. But as a food pantry, no, I do not.
Then we close. We can't survive without the federal food.
I'm not saying you shouldn't not, but
what if these people come in and say, no, we don't want to share our information?
Then they shouldn't have to.
I agree with you.
God's coming,
but then we close because we will have no food to give anybody.
I don't think you. I mean,
yeah, it's the way it is.
God's sending these folks to you, and any church type organization, God is sending these folks to you to help.
What about winter shelters?
Same thing. If you're cold, you're cold. Let the people lay down. Don't manipulate them into, okay, we're going to collect your information and then we're going to report you to the government because you need a place to sleep. Because
so what do you say is the defining instinct? How do you just say whether they're a Christian organization or not?
I mean, you're a Christian organization. You preach the gospel. You preach. You help. You everyone's in. It's a ministry. If you're a for-profit organization,
well, no. I think all your winter shelters here are nonprofits too, but they're not Christian.
Well, then that's
no. How do you draw the distinction?
I don't have that answer, and I will admit that, and I will take that. But in my opinion, I just don't see, because someone's cold and they need a place to lay their head and sleep, that they should be worried that they might get deported because now this organization is going to give their information to the federal government who wants to play dictatorship.
But that's the exact quandary that we're being faced with, especially now.
I understand. And that's why I want people to give us a call, 757-488-5299. Should organizations in general give this information up, or in my opinion, should definitely Christian organizations give this information up?
Well, see, you would look at this. What is the Operation Smile? They're a Christian organization.
Right.
What about Billy Graham's operation?
Billy Graham better not be getting federal funds, in my opinion.
Well, he goes around and he was at the North Carolina, people feeding him there.
Right,
He's feeding the people. He gets federal funding through FEMA. You bet your sweet bippy they do.
I don't think he needs it. I would cut it.
That's whether they need it or not.
When I say he, I know Billy Graham is not the one doing that. I just want to point that out. I know it's his organization with his name on it, and yes, God bless Billy Graham. So when I say he, I don't mean I mean the organization.
But the key thing is, even people like Goodwill.
Goodwill's not. Okay.
They're a Christian organization.
Sure. Okay.
CHKD.
Now we're just slapping names on things.
No, this was a big expose about 8 years ago in our area with the thrift stores.
Right, I know, and I don't feel those are Christian organizations. I don't think Goodwill and CHKD are Christian organizations.
And I know what I think would be a distinction.
What's that? Go ahead.
If one's a business and the other's not.
True story. There we go. Perfect.
But then we would be the only one who's not.
Then people need to start working for free and doing what we're told to do regardless.
And that's where you run into situations. So, for example, we have said that information. Now, here's the one thing that we have that's kind of a caveat. For the USDA food, we have a form that's called a self-declared information form. Self-declared. And whatever they give us, we're supposed to receive with no ID. Okay? So if a person comes in and tells me that their name is Tyler Durden, and it's happened, and his occupation is, we don't talk about it.
You don't talk about Fight Club.
But he didn't ever said the words. He just said, we don't talk about it. Well, I need your address. He says, we don't talk about it. Then we are, by USDA guidelines, supposed to accept it. Now, and when that guy did come, I looked at him and I said, really, do you think I'm stupid? Do you think I don't watch movies? Anyway.
Tim, you are a good Christian man. You should not be watching Fight Club.
I had a life before. So anyway.
Doing the math here. Yeah, you might be right.
Yeah. So anyway, and it did happen back at the old place. So
I remember. You told me that story before.
Anyway, the key thing is we reached out to the Richmond USDA office and said, listen, this is a self-declared form. You said whatever they tell us, we can put down. Now, as a priest, as a pastor, I do not want to tell people to lie. I don't think that that's appropriate. But Social Security offices are now using their address, and the last 4 social of the client is a mailing address for all those homeless people that don't have mailing addresses. They can't afford a P.O. box. Right now, I don't think we can afford a P.O. box. But aside from that, homeless people can use the Social Security office with the last 4 of their social as an apartment number. And they agreed with us on that. So what we do is I use everybody who is what we call LEP, Limited English Proficiency. If they don't speak English, I automatically encode them in our system with our address and their client number that we give them when they register as their apartment number. Yet, we still have their regular address for funding purposes. So, if they honestly came in and said, you must, they'd get a load of crap. I could give that, but I'm not going to give them what's reality. But we are the only pantry who does this. And it's something to think about. because I believe it's coming down the pike more and more as we remove the criminals off the street. We're going to start getting other criminals off the street.
See, I just don't. There's a difference from criminals and immigrants.
No, if they're coming across the border illegally, they are criminals.
That's in my opinion, that's negative. I know officially they've broken the law.
Well, if they're officially broken the law, they're illegal.
Well, if you speed, you're a criminal.
Yeah, and if you have a warrant out for your arrest, you will get deported.
Yes, but like I just don't. This is the land of the free. We're supposed to bring the immigrants in.
That's
the whole point of our country.
They get vetted. Think about all the people who have been killed and raped by illegal immigrants who already had records before they came in.
But we could say that about anybody, unfortunately.
No.
That's just.
You look at it, the studies show that most of these people that we're hearing from that have really committed these, Riley Lakin.
How about we talk about? We got to go to a commercial break.
I figured we did, folks. We're going to take a break. We'll come back on the other side. I want to hear from you. 757-488-5299. 757-488-5299. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Picking Up the Habit here on the Truth Radio Network, 96.9, 97.9, and 100.1 FM on your radio dial. You can catch us online at WPMHradio.com.
Mold, trash, rodents, snakeskin, even deceased animals. No, this isn't a Halloween shopping list. It's what might be under your house, in your crawl space. Schedule a free crawl space inspection with the Crawl Space Company and find out what's in your crawl space. Call 757-394-3494 to schedule your free inspection or visit thecrawlspacecompany.net. So, do you know what's in your crawl space?
Actual client review of Hartman Dentistry.
I just want to say that I just went to Dr. Hartman, and she is absolutely wonderful.
What did you think when you walked in? Did it just feel like it was a relaxing place to be?
Yes, very nice, very clean, very bright. You're not sitting in a room with just four walls. The room that I was in, you could see outside.
Did you have a wait before you walked in?
I was there maybe 15 minutes before I got into the office, and so I got into my chair, and then maybe another 30 minutes while the technician, did X-rays and all.
And so, are you going to go back and get your teeth fixed the way she says?
I'm going to try. I am going to try because I really trust her, and the only reason I went is because you thought so highly of her.
I got to tell you, I'm in love.
Give Hartman Dentistry a call at 757-873-3407.
Thank Fitz & Sons Garage Doors for their longtime sponsorship. Sean and Rosemarie Fitzgibbons have lived in and raised their family right here in Hampton Roads for over 20 years. They are longtime members of Tabernacle Church. Fitz & Sons has served our community for 25 years, offering garage door repair and new garage door installation. They can be reached at 757-480-5083 and FitzandSonsGarageDoors.com. That's FITZ and SonsGarageDoors.com.
Are you worried about the future of your savings? Wondering how to protect and grow your wealth in uncertain times? Hi, I'm Jeremy Blossom, and my financial presentations have reached thousands of investors across the nation. Today, I want to share some critical insights about the gold market that could significantly impact your financial future. In my latest analysis, I've uncovered compelling evidence that shows a potential boom in gold prices. This information is too important to keep to myself, which is why I'm giving away a free gold investment guide to Americans with a 401k or IRA. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just starting out, this guide could revolutionize your portfolio. Just call 800-741-GOLD for your free guide. That's 800-741-GOLD. If you're worried about financial markets or a shaky economy, this free guide could be the solution you're looking for. Just call 800-741-GOLD now for your free guide. That's 800-741-GOLD. Call now. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
3, go. I was all alone till I gave you my life, my temptation, my sin, every wrong you make right.
I do. I really do think we need a feeding test.
Tim got a phone call just now, so that's why he's asking this question. It was a great phone call. Basically the question was like Darwin had tests to see if people were intelligent. We should have a test that people need to get free food. Which welcome back. This is Picking Up the Habit. My name is Frady. We have Brother Tim. We are live for only the second time in 6 weeks. It's good to see you again, Tim.
It's great to be here. 757-488-5299. 757-488-5299.
If you're just joining us, we've been actually talking about illegal immigrants and reporting them to the government if they come in, and for any organization, but mostly I brought up the fact that if it's a Christian organization or not, like Brother Tim's is at Five Loaves. And give us a call. Tell us what you think. 757-488-5299. Should organizations give out information on their clientele for being hungry or need food or rest? Or we brought
what
up
is the difference between an illegal immigrant and an immigrant?
If they don't register themselves, they enter the country.
Nope.
Oh, then tell me.
A legal immigrant is a person that's been fully vetted and given a green card before they get in, or a visa. So, for example, somebody that's coming in from overseas attending college, they need to get all that done before they can get here. And then when they come here, they are a legal immigrant.
Legal. Okay.
Okay, because they're here for school. Now,
correct. So if they don't do any of that, they're here illegally.
Illegally. They
right.
cross the border and they have not been vetted.
That's what I meant, but I just said
okay.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody goes to school and at the end of their 4 years they don't renew,
they're still here illegally now.
Now they are here illegally.
Right.
Now, we have in our area a number of immigrants that are State Department vetted people. The State Department of the USDA, or excuse me, of the US, will go ahead and they have people apply for sanctuary because they are being discriminated against, they're being killed. They need, I can't, I'm not thinking the word, but they need sanctuary. So they apply to the State Department. The State Department schedules an appointment, investigates, and then either brings them in or doesn't bring them in. I can tell you, I know for a fact that that has happened in our area because we help them. We are told that they have been vetted by the State Department, and when they come in, they have ID cards.
Right.
But we have a lot of people like our migrant workers who come up here during harvest time that are not legal. They snuck across the border, or whether they snuck or not these days, they came across the border without being vetted. Now, there are those who have come across the border without being vetted who are criminals in their own country. Make that clear. They are already criminals in their own country. Some of them were in prison and released from prison. How many? I don't think that many. I don't know. But I do know that some are because they've been on the news. And then there are other people who have never been in jail, but are criminals, have been investigated, etc. Those are the ones right now, my understanding is they're trying to get out of the country. But at some point in time, I'm certain it's going to move to the other people. Okay. And that's why the next thing that we have to deal with as clergy will be the 14th Amendment and people, the babies that are born in the United States to illegal parents.
I know we got people. I know we got people who feel one way or the other on this topic. So I'm just going to ask directly. Give us a call, 757-488-5299. That's 757-488-5299. Do you think, yes or no, organizations like Five Loaves Food Pantry should give the government a list of all of their clientele so that the government can weed out who is legal, who is illegal, and they can figure that out? Should Brother Tim have to give that list up if the government came to his doors and said, we want a complete list of every person that comes through your doors? I know for a fact we have people who say yes, and I'll guarantee there are people who are listening right now who feel the same way I do. No, because God sent you those people. to feed them and to clothe them and to give them shelters if you're a homeless shelter and stuff like that. So I want to hear from you. I really, really do. 757-488-5299.
I don't know why you're stopping at food pantries.
I'm not trying to stop the food pantry. You know how I feel about the food pantry.
What about Hampton Roads Church when they're asked for their member roll?
See, that's my worry. Is it's gonna create a monster, and I don't feel like. Not that I'm anti-government. Look, I am not anti-government. I want to make that abundantly clear. Okay, I love the government. I'm not saying there's good things about the government. I'm saying there's bad things about the government. We all feel that way. I'm not trying to bring down the government. That's not what I'm saying. I just don't look. I understand that there are
But Brady, I'm already having problems feeding the people that I have. I'm speaking out of both ears. I know this, but people who have paid their taxes, they're not available to get the food that they need because it's going to people that are not paying taxes.
Right. And some of them are not here illegally. Homeless.
That doesn't mean they're illegal.
Right. But my point is, you mentioned people who are paying taxes are not getting the food that they deserve. And that's a shame. And they need to, we got to figure something out for organizations to help better. But that's a different topic.
There's only so much money. Are you willing to pay more money each week?
If God's calling on that, God will provide, in my opinion.
Then I guess God's not calling because we aren't being.
But you're feeding everybody. It may not be how much they want. They might want 10 items and they're only getting 8, but they're getting fed. God is providing every person in some form or fashion that walks through your doors food. They are not leaving that organization without some food, unless it's literally just like they've already shut down for the day, which you tell them as we run out of food, come back
Here's
tomorrow.
The thing. We are coming to a point where we are, and I mean we as a country, have to draw some clear boundaries. Either people need to start giving more.
People need to start giving more.
Have you heard what's been happening?
Maybe.
Parents can't get daycare anymore because their daycare is being used for housing.
Okay, then it's time for the churches to step up.
Well, now we're going to be getting back into our own places.
I'll say it. It's time it is time for churches in general to step up. I'm not saying every church needs to start a food pantry. I'm not saying that at all. I'm a firm believer in stay in your lane. The church is a body, has a place for certain organizations like Five Loaves to be the food pantry. And it's time for every church that knows anything about Five Loaves in general to step up and start helping and giving financially or ways to help to get more food. I'm not saying bring the food,
but we're not just talking about food. We're also talking about housing. We're talking about medical care.
Time to step up.
We're talking about housing, medical care, employment.
I know I could tell you on the peninsula, just based off my years of experience and working with organizations, if you're homeless in the winter, there are organizations. I forget the newest. I know Link was Port. There it is, Port. I can't tell you what organization does that on the South Side. I'm sure there is.
Oh,
one.
there are. Each city has one.
Right, but the point is I know for a fact, based off of advertising and marketing, not they spend money on that, but just like even to this day, I haven't lived on a peninsula in 5 years now, and I can still see people talk on social media. If you need a place to stay in Newport News, go here. I don't see that for the South Side folks, and that's a shame. We need to step up as churches.
It's there. You just may not be plugged in yet, but I can tell you there are, because there's
I'm sure
Nest in Norfolk. Chesapeake has, I can't remember what their abbreviation is, but everyone has it. But here's the thing. I'm going to state maybe about half, maybe 3/4 of that money that they get to run those comes from the state and the federal government.
That's my thing, is they shouldn't be coming from the state.
So
it's time for the churches to look. We said this 4 times today. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Give to God what is God's.
But see, and this is, we've said this many, many times. We're repeating now.
Of course.
Up until, I guess it was the 40s, all of this was the church's responsibility.
And it should be the church's responsibility.
And the churches gave it up to the government. And now the government has been left in charge. We were talking earlier about what does a pastor do? Well, back in the 40s, if you needed food, you'd sit down with your pastor and find out what the situation is. and they would give holistic treatment in addition to the food. They would help. Maybe they would have a daycare at the church. They would help with medical bills. They would do everything as a church to people who come to the church. Nowadays, everyone funds that off to another organization.
I'm a firm believer, and I'm going to call out every single solitary church right now. There should not be hungry people in your church, in your actual church. There should not be hungry people. There should not be people that need daycare. There should not be people who need a place to sleep at night. There should not be anyone in your personal church with any of those items that you are not helping with. I don't care what church you are. I don't care what denomination you are. I don't care. If you have a hungry person in your church, you have people in your church that feed them. If you have a person that's lost their house and they have children, let them stay in your living room. Put some bean bags down or some whatever. And as a church, it is our responsibility to take care of everyone in our church. And if you know people outside your church with the same thing, I'm not saying bring strangers in your house. I get it. But you know what? What are these churches doing outside of Sundays for the most part? I'm not saying every church. I'm not calling out all the churches out there. Look, there's lots of great churches that do lots of great things. But ask yourself, you have a building that sits there 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, okay? And I guarantee there's not a single church that for the most part, that is being used every hour of the day. Why not? Why not? If we're paying rent, we're paying light. Oh, I got to pay the light bill. Okay, step up, and your congregation needs to help with the light bill then. But if there are someone sleeping outside a mile up the road from your church and you know it, and you're not letting them stay inside that warm building that's not being used, shame on you. Call me up 757-488-5299 and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm okay with that. But if you know of someone that's homeless and you're not letting them stay inside your church, shame on you. That's just all I'm going to say. I don't care what church you are.
Bunk. That was the microphone being dropped. Folks, I can argue with him all day long because it's what I do.
That's what we do, yeah.
But your opinions matter because, folks, if you haven't forgotten, you're the church. Not the building you go to, not your pastor, but you, each person listening, you are the church. You know, I'm having a big issue right now, have for months, with my organization because we seem to think in action that the only thing that is important is people in the building on Sunday. And I'm going to put it even more bluntly than that. Money. Because the church needs money to operate. And the only time the church makes money is when they have Sunday service and we can guilt threat everybody with tithe. And therefore, in order to have more money to do whatever we want to do, we have to have more churches, more butts in the seat. I keep asking myself, if the people in the United States haven't heard about the gospel yet, we really have a problem, folks. I think most of the people have heard about the gospel and are refusing the gospel. Totally different story. But my issue is our churches are so interested, we will say we're interested in saving people. Why? To get more butts in the seat. And if you don't think that's the case, look around. Look at all the marketing that started about 30 years ago, 40 years ago. You didn't have any of this amount back in the 70s, in the 80s. It wasn't until the 90s when you started having contemporary Christian music and the breakout of the denominational, non-denominational churches that things started changing. Because religion back then was very familial. What do I mean by that? If you were raised Catholic, you went Catholic. If you were raised Lutheran, you went Lutheran. There was no changing back and forth. Now, there were people who stopped being Catholic and maybe went Methodist, but they did that as adults, as they were raising their children. Very rarely did that happen every 3 years like now. Think about how many times you're changing churches. Think about how many people in your church change year after year.
I know people leaving churches now because the pastor wasn't wearing a tie, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Then you didn't go to church for the right reason.
Correct. Like I've had some. Look, I'm not knocking church hurt. We've had this topic before as a full show, and I've said this comment before. I'm not knocking church hurt, but come on, folks. Nowadays, I just think we're too pansy is the only word I can think of.
No, there's another word with the same letter, but I'll go with it.
Yeah, we'll go with
The thing is, folks, there is a lot of church wounded, but there are a lot of people out there who don't want to be church educated. And there are a lot of churches out there who are only worried about, what is it? I heard something today. We teach people how to be Christians, but not in the spirit.
Oh, amen. Oh, that's perfect.
Okay.
Oh, that's perfect. Cause I'm gonna go ham on this church hurt in a minute, but let me stop.
Well, the thing is that there are a lot of people out there. You expect your church to do, well, that's why I tithe. No, that isn't why you tithe. You tithe because God commands it.
I don't know. I can't tell you how many Christians lately I know, which is sad in my part because I'm not doing maybe my part, and I'll call myself out here. But I can't tell you the number of friends and colleagues that I know who are not currently going to church, important people in my life. And they might be listening right now because they care for me and they're watching the show. And this is not why I'm calling them out. I'm not trying to, but there are multiple people who are not going to church right now. They're not doing what they need to do as Christians because something happened.
I'm going to throw another one at you. What about the people who don't go to church on Sunday, but they live the gospel 6 days out of 7?
They're still wrong, but
why are they wrong if they are practicing the gospel versus the people who sit in the pew and do nothing?
I'm not saying they're wrong compared, but the Bible does tell us to be around like-minded believers to feed ourselves.
They can be around like-minded believers. They're just not gathering on Sunday with the hypocrites.
Well, there's not everyone in the building is a hypocrite.
No, but they choose to associate with people that are not.
Right, but why? Then they got to find a church. Then I'm not saying don't find the church that fits you properly. I'm not saying that. If you have some real, what's the word I'm thinking about? Ethological, or I'm saying it wrong, but if you have with the scripture and the way that the actual word of the church, find a church that is preaching properly to you. I'm not saying don't find a different church.
Here's where I'm going to jump in, Brady, because of the non-denominational
strap it in again
business. Trying to find the right church could take years.
It shouldn't.
Well, no, it shouldn't. But you don't know what's the difference between one non-denominational and another.
I'm not even just saying non-denominational.
Yeah, but that's the point, though. If they can't find what church they like, they've gone Catholic, they don't like that. They've gone Lutheran, they don't like that. Oh, here's a non. I'll go there for a couple. Oh no, I don't like. Oh, here's another one just like it. I wonder if they.
That's not
you
church.
Can't. But that's that exactly.
That's the difference.
Because they aren't going to church for the right reason.
Right. They're going to church for themselves, and they go, look at me. They're the look at me Christians.
Or they're the Christians that go because they want to be entertained.
Right. That's literally it. Not because they're doing this for God. I've been to 3 churches in 18 years. And there's legit reasons why I left these churches. I moved. That's a major one. I'd still be at my last church if I hadn't moved. And that's just the way it is. Not because I don't like what you're saying. There's been plenty of times I've not liked what my pastor has been saying, including when they're calling me out personally. But you know what? They're doing it out of love, and they're doing it. And just because someone calls you out, it's time to reflect on yourselves. And like I said, I have met plenty of people who I care about who are not in church right now because they didn't like the fact that the pastor told them, no, that's not biblical. Well, guess what? If Your pastor feels it's not biblical. Chances are 9 times out of 10, guess what? It's not biblical.
Well, you got to be careful because there are a lot of pastors out there telling you it is
That's
biblical.
okay. Maybe 8 times out of 10, but for the most part, it's not. If you've been going to a church for years and then the first time they don't agree with you, you're running out. It's not the church, it's you.
You actually need to check what your church teaches before you get there.
Amen. It's on the website most of the time.
You need to do, what is it? Caveat emptor, buyer beware. For example, if your heating starts going out, you're going to need to start checking on the bona fides of that heat company. You go out. Nowadays, we've got Google, we've got Facebook. You start looking. You pull up that heating and air conditioning company. You look to see what the reviews are. And if you're like me, you don't go to those 5 stars. You go to the 1 stars. Because the 1 stars are the legitimate ones that are speaking truth as they experience, as opposed to the 5 stars that were paid for by whatever agency to go back and do 5 stars and give 5% gift certificates or whatever. Go to the one. But I got to tell you, that's the same way with church. But you need to be the same way, caveat emptor, with your business, with your dentist. You need to check out Hartman Dentistry. Look at their reviews that are on their page. Look at what people are saying about Dr. Hartman. You need to check out Worley's Home Services. You need to check out their reviews on Facebook, on Google. Call them up. Ask them, are you rated? Are you in the Better Business? Look at their reviews. Brady is anxious to give out numbers, and I'm going to let him go.
Give Worley's a call at 757-356-4117. That is Worley's Home Services, 757-356-4117. Hartman Dentistry, give them a call at 757-873-3407. We ever figure out what her name is? How to say her name?
No, I meet with them this week to get it.
That's right. They just came back from Peru.
Yep.
Look, you got to love do you know what they're doing in Peru?
That's where Dr. Hartman's home's from.
You got to love it. You got to love everything about it.
When you go to Worley's Home Services and you check, their Google rating is 4.9. And that's with almost 2,000 reviews.
I love Worley's. I saw them this past weekend at a home show I was at, and they're just great people.
You've got to look, folks. You've got to look. Look at your church. Find out what your church is rated, because your church also has a rating. Hopefully, it's pretty good. 4.8 for Hartman Dentistry. I mean, I don't even know what my church is.
My church is rated 5.0, but not as many reviews.
But, what, 3, 5?
25.
Okay. How many members you do? And folks, that should also be an indication to you. If only the members are reviewing, call, ask. And you who are members, tell your pastor they need to start promoting their reviews online. But next week, we'll be back here. Picking up the habit, 757-488-5299. We are checking all of our messages. Let us know. Otherwise, I'm Brother Tim.
And Freddie.
We'll talk to you next week.